Today, I've got love on my mind. This is Love Park in the city of Philadelphia, which, of course, is the city of brotherly love. And so I've got love on my mind as we think about Philadelphia. And also, it was 6 years ago yesterday that our daughter and now her husband, Aaron, were married. And so we think about anniversaries, we think about love, imperfect love, certainly. And today, in our reading from Mark, Jesus has love on his mind. You're not going to see the word love in this story, but Jesus has love on his mind, in his guts, and in his heart. He wants to teach the people who are with him about love, even though this story appears to be about washing your hands, about keeping pure and clean in the presence of God. So, chapter 7, Mark says this and has Jesus say, "Listen to me, all of you, and understand there's nothing outside a person that by going in can defile, but the things that come out are what defile." How many of you know what the word defile means? What's it mean, Scott? To take away, that's pretty good. Anybody else want to take a shot at it? Pardon me? Slander, okay. Barry, you're seminarian, you ought to know this. Now I'm going to let you off the hook. Okay, so Gene Peterson, in a paraphrase of the Bible, it's not a translation, it's a paraphrase called The Message, puts it, I think, in a better way when he writes, "Listen now, all of you, take this to heart. It's not what you swallow that pollutes your life, it's what you vomit. That's the real pollution." So what Jesus is talking about is not from the outside in. He's talking about what's happening inside of our guts, inside of our hearts, inside of our minds. And those are the things that can pollute, because it doesn't matter what goes in, it's what comes out. Love and integrity are inside out jobs, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. It's what comes out of us that is an expression of what we care about. It's what comes out of us that is an expression of what we love. It's what comes out of us that is an expression of our integrity. C.S. Lewis once said this: "Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching." It's a good thing to keep in mind. What's going on inside of us when nobody is watching, when we are alone? What's in our heart? What's in our mind? What's in our gut? What kinds of things are stirring that can lead us to be people of
He's
integrity?
an Arab. He is not. No.
No, ma'am. He's a decent family man, citizen that I just happen to have disagreements with on fundamental issues.
So John McCain, as many of you know, if you've been alive and awake and following what's happening outside of your house and outside of Pickerington and outside the state of Ohio, John McCain was laid to rest this week. John McCain was somebody whose political perspectives I often disagreed with. But John McCain, if you were in his presence or if you heard him speak, yes, he was a politician. But you had a sense that when John McCain spoke, it came from his guts. It came from his heart. It came from his mind. It came from his passion. McCain was known for being horribly blunt at times, but there was no mystery as to what he believed. From the inside out, he demonstrated integrity, not perfection, but integrity. And so it's good to lift up this imperfect person of God who gave his life, who died this past week. And we think about John and others as people who demonstrate integrity from the inside out. So we have this story with these deeply religious people, and they're concerned that the disciples are eating without washing their hands. It's not just about soap and water. It's about deeply held tradition going all the way back to the Hebrew Bible. 613 different laws, some of them having to do with purity. Washing cups inside and out. washing glasses, washing plates, washing silverware, washing your hands. It was about trying to achieve a state of holiness in the presence of God. It was about the importance of being clean in the eyes of God. And so these disciples are eating with dirty hands, and it creates an incredible amount of anxiety among the religious leaders. The Pharisees noticed that some of his disciples were eating with defiled hands, that is, without washing them. They do not eat unless they thoroughly wash their hands. They do not eat anything from the market unless they wash it. They asked Jesus, "Why do your disciples not live according to the tradition of the elders, but eat with defiled hands?" So it's out of Scripture that the idea that cleanliness is next to godliness comes. When I go home, Andrew, and there are dirty dishes, nobody's fault that they're there, probably mine. Not always, but often I'll see them, and they got to be washed. Counter's got to be clean, right? They got to be in the dishwasher. Forks in the right drawer. Plates and cups. You ever get to that place? Are you as obsessive compulsive as I am? You're almost. Okay. Cleanliness is next to godliness. How many of us heard that as kids? Yeah. Cleanliness is next to godliness. There was a slide that I almost put up that was kind of snarky that said, if cleanliness is next to godliness, then I must be Satan's BFF. It was a little cheesy, but it was kind of funny. Took it out this morning before I gave the final draft to Jeff. But cleanliness is next to godliness comes from this kind of situation. Got to wash your hands. Got to wash the pots. Got to wash yourself. Got to be clean and holy in the presence of God. And Jesus said, no, that's not what it's about. This is kind of a funny one. Clean hands save lives. I use so much alcohol-based hand sanitizer, my hands had to join a 12-step program. We are so obsessed with being clean, and somehow we think it has something to do with godliness. It has nothing, but it goes centuries back, all the way back to the scriptures with which many of us are familiar. The writer of the book of James said that we should be doers of the word, not only those who hear out here, but those who do from the inside out, from our guts, from our heart, from our mind. So be doers of the word. Love actually means getting your hands very dirty. Love actually means entering into situations that are difficult and tough. It means getting grease and mud and oil and dirt on your hands. Love requires us to get our hands dirty. If you say you love someone and you stand back as if you're not allowed or able to kind of mix it up, that's the rhetoric of love on the outside, but it's not love from the inside out. And so when we love, we have to be willing to get our hands dirty, get into the scrum. It's kind of messy. And yet it's not about clean hands or clean plates or clean silverware. It's about entering into the mess of life and being willing to risk loving in that way. Be doers of the word, says the writer of the New Testament book of James. Love is patient and kind. Where have you heard these words? Anybody? At a wedding. At a wedding. How many people think that these words that are read at a wedding are heard by anybody at the wedding? Andrew, you're thinking not too many. Yeah, they're beautiful words. They're lovely words, and they certainly have to do with marital love, but they are deeper than that. In chapter 13 of 1 Corinthians, Paul is talking about spiritual gifts. Love is patient and kind. That's not really schmoozy love. That is love that is inside out. James says to us, let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Slow to anger. To load your brain before you shoot off your mouth. My brain is often not fully loaded when I shoot off my mouth. My brain is sometimes almost not loaded at all. You ever have that issue? Yeah. I believe Scott does. I know him well enough. Love to razz Scott. So, load your brain before you shoot off your mouth. Be slow to speak. Be careful to listen. Be slow to anger. Know what's going on. Know what's stirring inside of you, because love and integrity are inside out jobs. So be in touch with what's inside of you before you speak it. That's what it means to love. Be doers of the word. I love you more than words can say. Well, that actually is what love is about. When love is spoken, it's a wonderful sentiment, but love is more than words. To be doers of love is to get beyond this rhetoric that's lovely and nice and to go inside and to choose to love. Scott Peck, this is an ancient book now written in 1978. That was in the last century, for those of you who might not remember, the 1900s. Started out a book, and the first sentence was this, 3 words: life is difficult. Life is difficult. And then he reminded us that love is a decision that we make every day. We might get up to the people who are close to us and say, I really don't feel like loving you today, but I'm going to decide. See, that's inside out love. That's not just love is patient and kind, not envious or boastful, not arrogant or rude. That is a decision that comes from the inside out. So are you a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal? Hear those same words from 1 Corinthians. Are you a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal? Do you speak when you ought to listen? Do you not stop and say, what's going on inside of me instead of what's happening outside of me? Are you a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal? At some point, I think that probably describes all of us. Robert Fulghum, I love this. Don't worry that children never listen to you. Worry that they are always watching you. They don't care what you say. They care what's happening from the inside out. Love and integrity are inside out jobs. It's what's happening from the inside to the outside. Love means respecting the one you love. To respect. To R-E-S-P-E-C-T. David, I couldn't help it. Sing if you want to. Nice job. Okay, so Aretha Franklin, she died recently. Her funeral was yesterday, I think, maybe the day before, at a place called the Greater Grace Temple in Detroit. Detroit is a city that has been much maligned over the years since what happened there in the late 60s. You could go back and call whatever you want those events, but a lot of people say instead of calling it the Motor City, we ought to call it the Murder City. It's been much maligned. Detroit is filled with about 90% African American folks who have had people make promises on the outside for years, and yet there have been food deserts, buildings that have been in ill repair for decades. So lots of rhetoric, lots of words, but nothing delivered. Well, I've been trying to pay attention to what's happening in Detroit, and it looks like there are some people who are actually entering into the city, and there appears to be some renewal. Urban gardens, buildings taken down, work that's coming from the outside in and not simply promises that are never delivered upon. Be doers of the word. So why did Jesus die on the cross, and what does it have to do with clean hands and washing pots and pans and silverware? Why did Jesus die on the cross? There's a pastor, his name is in the bottom so you can't see it. I don't want to offend him, but I want to challenge what he said. He said this: when you hang out with the wrong people in the wrong places, you will soon do the wrong things. That is not my Jesus. And that is not your Jesus, and that is not the Jesus of the Gospels. You know, as I do, that Jesus went to the untouchables and touched, healed the unhealables, and healed, ate with sinners and tax collectors and prostitutes, went to all the wrong places with all the wrong people, and invites us to do the same. To dig into our guts and our hearts and our minds and to realize that going to the so-called wrong people in the so-called wrong places is exactly what we are called to do as an expression of that inside-out love. So with all due respect, that is not Jesus. What we just heard, what Jesus is, has to do with all the wrong people, all the wrong places. So why did Jesus die on the cross? What I've come to know, in my humble opinion, is that Jesus did not die to assuage the anger of God. That's not why Jesus died, in my humble estimation. Jesus did not die because God was so angry at us that Jesus had to die in our place. Now keep listening. What I mean to say is that Jesus chose to love and to be a doer of love and a doer of the word, to express God's love so that we would have life. John calls it eternal life. Life that is eternity here and certainly in the life to come. Not because God was angry, but because Jesus chose to go. He fulfilled his mission with a love that was beyond words. Jesus was a doer of the word. So today, Jesus has love on his mind for us. God has love on his mind for us. I've got love on my mind and in my heart. And now that we've heard about it, perhaps God's love is kind of seeping into your heart, into your guts, into your mind as an inside-out expression. God has love on his mind for us this day.